Happy Tuesday, everybody. Today is March 16th, 2021, and today's episode is part one of our Shed series, and today's guest is with Cody Motter from Ohio. Welcome to the Fall Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Blasey, and today's episode is episode 151. And like I said in the brief beginning, we are doing a brief, short, little shed hunting series. Actually, today's episode was with Cody Motter from Ohio. He's a taxidermist / shed hunter / bow hunter / passionate human being. This guy lives for shed hunting, and you know, there's a lot of like tips and tricks in this, but we also talk about how he approaches shed hunting and approaching new farms and public land. He travels all over the Midwest shed hunting. He just loves it that much. So it's pretty cool. It's eye-opening to say the least on a lot of things that I really didn't even take into consideration when I go shed hunting. So I do like to shed hunt. I'm not going to say I'm a huge shed hunter. I feel like I'm a terrible shed hunter. I haven't found a lot of sheds. But I have found a few. I found some good ones. I feel like I more than likely just trip on them, instead of like seeking them out and like, oh my gosh, there's a shed way over there. I'm the guy that like kind of trips onto them. So I'm a novice shed hunter when it comes to this stuff. So it's pretty cool to hear his side of shed hunting and what he loves to do and the passion he has for it. So with that being said, I do want to briefly just talk about the trip that Casey and I took 2 weeks ago, I think. Yes, 2 weeks ago we went down to Illinois to a new farm of ours, and we shed hunted it, and it was just him and I. We put 25 and a half miles on in 2 days, found 18 sheds, 2 deadheads. I found 2 really big deadheads, and we had a lot of fun doing it. Had some great days. Like I said, we walked a long way, but the kind of unique take on it was that 16 of the 18 sheds that we found were all south-facing hillsides. 2 of the other sheds, I found one in a standing bean field, and Casey found one in just a green source food plot, like a late-season food source. So that was pretty crazy to see. I feel like it's crazy just because I feel like we should have found more in food. We had good food, good late season food, and there really wasn't any in there, which was pretty crazy. In the south facing hillside that we found majority of these on, it was a south facer that gets sun basically all day. I felt like the hillside was just north to where the sun would be coming up in the east, but still as it comes up in the east, there's still sun on this hillside, and it just stays there the whole day. So you could definitely tell that the deer were spending most of their times there. Casey found an absolute giant set. I think he rough scored it at like 163 or 165, somewhere right in there. And if you guys want to see our trip, go to our YouTube channel. We just dropped this last weekend. So go to our YouTube channel. It's Kiefer Brothers _Humanimal on YouTube. It's like a little 6-minute video that I put together just about our shed hunt. So it's pretty cool. There's some funny parts in there. So go take a look at that. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you guys would, and drop us a little comment on there and tell us what you think about it and everything. So, but yeah, that's kind of the brief overview take that I had on that shed hunt. We walked a lot, had a lot of fun. We measured food plots. We got to plant 13 food plots this year, trying to get all the seed and everything ready to get ordered for all that, so we can go back down and plant all the food plots during turkey season, and that's kind of the plan. That was our plan going down there. It was a quick trip. It was about a 3-day trip with travel and put boots on the ground, and it was pretty fun. So when you guys are out there, and sheds are dropping right now, but a lot of sheds are already dropped. So when you're out there, I guess my best pro tip for you, if you want a pro tip, not like I said, I'm green at shed hunting, but something that I've been finding a lot of sheds on this year, south-facing hillsides. Not to say they're not in food, but I haven't found a lot in food. Tried to find some thermal cover also. I mean, thermal cover, cedars, pine thickets, anything like that. I know a lot of guys are finding stuff like that right now as well. So, yeah. I guess with that being said, I'm going to get over this interview with Cody. We had a really good time. He's a good dude. Look him up on Instagram and follow his passion of shed hunting. He's finding a lot of sheds right now and a lot of big sheds. Oh, we also get into a story of a giant set that he found this last year in Kansas. And this set of sheds is huge, giant, and it's a pretty cool story on how he found these. So there it is. You guys enjoy this episode. I appreciate your support. Appreciate all the downloads and everything. So thank you guys very much. And here's this interview with Cody. All right, welcome back to the Fall Podcast. And today I've got my first guest I'm going to do this little shed hunting series, I guess you could call it. I got my first guest on, Cody Motter from Ohio. Cody, welcome to the podcast, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, man.
No problem, man. You reached out to me not too long ago and wanted to come on, and I was like, yeah, let's do this because I've got some really good friends. Brent Todd, he's been on here and he's a hardcore shed hunter. Another guy that I'm going to record with that's going to air after you is Mitch Reitz, another really hardcore shed hunter. And it's something that's fascinates me because I've done quite a bit of shed hunting, but I've just not been very successful at it. I found some sheds and found some good sheds, but like I was telling you before off record, it hasn't bit me yet. The bug has not bit me to be like, I want to be hardcore into this like it has with you. So I'm excited to get into this with you, man.
Yeah, looking forward to it, man. It's something I absolutely live for. So if I can, spread the word on the do's and don'ts and get some more people out and enjoying the woods, and I'm all about it, man.
Heck yeah. Well, first, before we do get into this, kind of explain who you are, where you're from, and, maybe what you do for a living.
Sure. Yeah. Like you said, my name's Cody Motter. I'm from Northern Ohio. I run a taxidermy shop, Bones Taxidermy. We're going into year 7. It's been a crazy year. I'm extremely busy, very fortunate to be this busy with the world we live in today. It's great to see that I can keep the doors open, but yeah, in my free time, I'm a hardcore deer hunter, I guess you could say. I think about it 24/7 and talk about it 24/7, obviously, in the taxidermy shop, and and then on to sheds. I'm so busy in the fall, I don't get to really hunt as much as I want to, but kind of the spring allows me to get out and stretch my legs when I'm not busy skinning deer and mounting deer so crazy that, I'm a shed hunt fool, man. I live for it. So,
well, good deal. And is that kind of your way to supplement maybe what you might have missed out in the fall, is like your shed hunting experiences, stuff like that, like get out there and like that kind of gets you going, like, you're missing out, like you said, a little bit in the fall because of taxidermy, your day job. So is that kind of how you supplement that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. That helps fill that void of, feeling like you're missing out. And not only that, when I shed hunt, obviously the goal is to find some antlers, but I'm really keying on just trying to figure out a certain piece of property and, where to hunt, where are other people hunting, where the deer are bedding, the whole layout. That way, the following fall, when I have just minimal amount of time to go, I already know the property or have a good idea, the do's and don'ts, where to park, where to walk in, the whole 9 yards. So.
Yep. Now, are you an exclusive public land guy?
Not per se. Mainly the out west states is mainly public. I do have some private ground. I walk in Iowa at a buddy's, but everything out west pretty much is all public stuff. Here locally, I would say 90% is private ground.
Okay.
But the further west I go, it's basically public.
Yep, I gotcha.
Yep.
Now, when you're I guess let's get right into the shed hunting. I kind of want to go back to like what what got you into shed hunting, and when was the moment when it was like, man, this is like what I want to be doing. Like, I'm so excited to do this. Like, when did that evolution happen?
Yeah, kind of a funny story. I guess I was kind of a late bloomer in the deer hunting world. I started deer hunting. I just turned 15. This would have been 2005. And I shot my first deer that year with a bow. My cousin he gave me his hand-me-down bow 2 weeks before deer season. Didn't know what the hell I was doing,
Yep.
It's just, hey, let's go deer hunting. But I ended up shooting my first buck that year, and you would have thought I shot the state record.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I shot him on the ground. It was crazy, but it was a 115-inch deer. But like I said, I thought it was a state record, and here we go. This is the ultimate thing. But that just kind of sparked it right there. I was just obsessed with deer.
Yep.
I was like, this is just the coolest thing ever. Well, back then, we didn't really have smartphones and all this kind of thing, but I was a freshman in high school, right? So some buddies and I were in a study hall, didn't have any homework, or if we did, we weren't doing it anyway. So we're messing around on the computers, and I'm looking up all this stuff for deer hunting and big deer, blah, 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 and on Google, and this article pops up, shed hunting. Oh, what in the hell is shed hunting? I'll click on that, reading through it. And this is how green I was. I didn't even know, deer went through the velvet phase and everything. I had no clue.
Yep.
Deer regrew their horns, dropped them. I had no clue. I had no idea. And, but anyways, I'm reading through shed hunting. I'm like, you can go out and find these damn things? I'm like, no way. So read a few of these articles, and back then I couldn't even drive yet. I didn't have a truck yet. So technically my first shed hunt, I got a hold of my dad. He took me out to a public piece around here in Ohio, actually across the street from where I live. And off I go. I just take off walking, have no clue where deer live, what they do, nothing. And I walked and walked and walked and walked for weeks on end, walking all this public. And I finally find one. And I'll never forget it till the day I die. I was walking back to the road there where Dad was going to pick me up, and I seen tines sticking up out of the leaves. And I kind of stopped, and I said, holy shit, is that a shed? And I take off running. I get over there. Actually, what it was so close to the road, I think a deer got hit.
Oh,
and
really?
The antler flew off, yeah.
Oh, my gosh, okay.
Yeah, so it technically wasn't a shed, but I found it. And from then on, I just was absolutely just obsessed with trying to find more. And
yep.
What do they do? Where do the deer stay? Why do they stay? Just from there on, it's been a never-ending game in my head. I don't care how much I think I know about it. I'm always trying to just keep going and learning from other people. And it's a mental illness per se.
Well,
can't get rid of it.
That's awesome, man. That's so cool to even, just kind of dive into something that you have no idea what you're doing, and just kind of learn it on your own. That's really sweet. Now, on average, every shed season or every year, how many antlers do you think you're finding on average?
Well, I will say, prior to the season of 2015, I don't really remember how many I found. But the first few years I did it, it was very few, like one or two. Then the one year I think I found like 4 or 5, and then another year I found like 21, and then I was kind of stuck in the 20s there for a minute. But 2015, here in the Midwest, we had a record snowfall year. We got like 3 foot of snow or something in like February, and it was super, super cold. And that year, I ended up pulling 63 sheds.
Holy cow.
It was nuts, man. It was nuts. And then from 2015 on, I found 38 to 45, 46 from then on out.
Okay.
It's been a little bit tougher, but I've also expanded and really started, checking, out the out west states, and so that'll kind of hinder your numbers, but it's about a 40 average per year from about 2015 on.
That's crazy, man. Now, when you're finding these things, I mean, through the evolution of you like learning this, when was the moment you were like, okay, I got to find thermal cover, or I got to find the food, or like, when did that start clicking to you? And was it like you started to find more sheds and more sheds? It's like the light bulb moment, like this is where I need to be looking.
Yeah. That really kind of started clicking actually about 2015, to be honest with you. Because it was such a consistent, I mean, we'd go back like every week and keep finding sheds in the same spots. And, I was really starting to kind of dabble with filming this and stuff. So I was trying to, portray exactly what I was doing for the people that were going to watch the video. And, when I did that, it really kind of, like you said, that light bulb went off. It's like, hey, you notice, all these deer are hitting these low bottoms, are getting out of the wind and all that, next to the ag fields and stuff. And I started picking up patterns on that. And that's when I just really started, diving into the how-tos and the whys and all that to where they're going. Because, around here, it's a lot of ag fields and, fence rows, and you get some river bottom stuff that gets pretty gnarly, but it's your pretty basic stuff. And it's just them, it's pretty cut and dry. You find your main food and your transitions between that and your best bedding, and that's pretty much where you're going to find the majority of your sheds.
Yep. Now, do you have a spot where I shouldn't say a spot, but what is the prototypical area where like where you can look at like maybe a topo map? Let's say you've never been to a piece of ground. You're like, I'm gonna go shed hunt it. Now, are you looking at topo maps or anything like that, Onyx or whatever, to kind of like pick apart and like discern like what's there and where you're gonna start, so you're not like wasting a whole bunch of time in areas you really probably shouldn't be in?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always said, you plan, discover, and learn. Because, kind of when we first started going out west to these western states and, Kansas, Iowa, Missouri, obviously we've never been there. So, you get on a topo map and here's a big layout of a couple thousand acres. It's like, well, where do you start?
Right.
But, first we'll find the access spots. Where can we park? Things of that nature that'll get you started. And then we'll break down what we can kind of physically see where they're probably feeding, whether that's an ag field, or if there's a power line going through where there's a lot of, early successional growth type stuff where they're browsing around super heavy. Just try to pinpoint what we think would be the main food source. And then whether or not if it's real hilly terrain or it's got a bunch of draws in it, we'll try to pick apart those next closest draws and stuff like that, close to the feed, all stuff like that. But yeah, we just try to game plan the day out to where we're hitting those main food sources and what we think is the closest bedding to it. Then it's as simple as getting the boots on the ground, and we'll just really kind of zigzag or grid pattern that whole area, and we'll just kind of let the sign, guide us to where we want to go, and just roll with it that way.
Yep.
And you got to be willing to adapt too. We've walked plenty of farms that just look killer on a topo map. Like, it looks like there's a big ag field tucked in the back of this river bottom, and it looks like there's some south facing hillsides with cedars and all this. It just looks money. And we get in there and there's very minimal sign. There isn't fresh, deer shit anywhere. There's a lot of boot tracks. It's just not happening. The deer aren't there. So you just pack up and you just keep finding that super fresh sign. And and just stay with it, man.
How, to kind of go back to that point, how do you keep a positive attitude when you see that? Like, you have high expectations. Like, you're going into a place that's like, man, they got great thermal cover, great bedding, like you said, south facing slopes. And when you go in there and you might find a little bit of sign or, some beds, but you don't find any antlers, like, how do you keep a positive mindset to be like, keep going? Because that's something I fall into. Like, I've got a really good south facing slope on one of my family farms here in Michigan that's really close to the main food source on most years. And I'm be honest with you, I've never found a shed on it. And
Yeah,
it's like, it's just discouraging. But how do you keep a positive mindset within that to keep going?
yeah, good point. It's shed hunting, as physical as hunting is, it's like 90% a mental game, man. Because just like you said, you got, you know, all the cards are on the table. Like, dude, this should be money, and you walk through it and you exhaust all your efforts, and then you come out with nothing. You just got to keep it in the back of your head. Maybe the deer haven't dropped yet. Maybe someone's already walked it. Maybe they have dropped and a coyote picked that shed up and took it in the middle of some field way off somewhere. So maybe you weren't necessarily wrong, just there wasn't the sheds there.
Right.
But in those scenarios, sometimes just because you're not finding sheds, if you can diagnose a property while you're there, maybe you find a new pinch point you didn't realize was there, or there's a freaking highway trail coming across this low spot in a creek, or, just diagnosing that whole farm to keep your mind right. Like, you're not losing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even
Yep.
though you didn't come out with a backpack full of sheds, your phone's loaded up with all these waypoints on, where to hang a set, where to get in and out of here. Man, there's 15 scrapes on the backside of this field I didn't know they're hitting. Just all kinds of stuff.
Sure.
Even where turkeys are roosting, you might find a giant oak tree you didn't know was there. Or there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, you can gather from that shed hunt to keep you motivated, and you feel good about what you did. You didn't just go walk out and your backpack's empty. So.
Right. It wasn't a complete loss. I mean, you're looking at the full
Exactly.
picture. Now,
Yep.
when you're looking for sheds, like, you're walking, you're scanning the ground, like, what is your process of, like, because for me, it's almost like I need to go plant a couple sheds to, like, kind of get my eyes primed. Like, do you have to do the kind of same thing, or, like, how are you scanning the ground to kind of, like, really get that visual of, like, an antler, and maybe so you're not, like, looking over them,
Yeah. Well, I think that battle is never won, because you'll always walk past one or something. But to kind of delay that from happening more often than not, I guess one good tip is always try to have the sun at your back, because when you're looking into the sun, it just draws so many shadows out in front of you, and those sheds can be hidden in those shadows and stuff like that, and it's hard to pinpoint them. So if you can keep the sun at your back, for one, that'll help kind of illuminate the sheds when the sun is out. Number two, if it's a overcast day or it just rained or something like that, that's prime time shed hunt, because now you've eliminated the sun and everything's kind of a monotone field of view for you.
Mm-hmm.
In that scenario, or either scenario, I walk fairly slow, especially if you're getting into a spot where you got a lot of sign. Obviously, that's telling you to wool up a little bit and really start scanning. When I'm going, I would say I probably look maybe 10 yards from my left to my right. And while I'm doing that, I'm also moving my eyes out and in probably 5 yards. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Kind of like
Yep.
a fan. And I won't do that all the time. I mean, if you're in kind of an area, you're getting to the next good spot, I won't necessarily go that slow. But when you start finding the super heavy deer trails and the fresh deer shit and the beds, and you're getting that fuzzy feeling, that's when I'll slow it way down and I'll start gridding it just like that. And I've always said, look small and you'll find big. What I mean by that is, just visualize it, a 3-inch little tine sticking up out of the snow or the leaves or whatever it is, and just look small, because you'll find that giant, obvious 70-inch side. I'm telling you, you'll see it. But if you want to increase your numbers, just for the sake of filling your pack, just look small and you'll find big. And then once you finally start to, you'll find a little one, or you'll find a decent shed but just buried in the snow. Then your eyes start getting acclimated to just those little tine tips sticking out everywhere, and you're honed in on that. Then boom, all of a sudden there'll be a 65-inch gagger sitting there, and you're like, hell yeah, there we go.
That's some good advice there, man. Like, I never really thought of it like that way, because obviously, for me, when I'm looking for sheds, I'm trying to find that like perfect tines up, like just laying there on the leaves, like just saying, pick me up kind of thing.
Exactly.
And it's probably, and you can speak to this better than I can, but it's probably very rare that you get that, probably, right?
It's pretty rare. I mean, there's some of those days where it's just like the shed gods are just placing them for you in perfect little spots, and it's just meant to be. 2019, I think that's what happened to me, but it seemed like every tree I walked around, there was a 60-inch side laying there. It was nuts. But
that's a hard problem to have.
That year was nuts. If I could go back and rewalk all those miles, I'd do it in a heartbeat. But yeah, that, falling back on that scanning and stuff, that's going back on that mental game, man. Because even if you're still having the mentality of look small, find big, and you do find a big one, then your mind switches to, oh God, I got to find the other big side, or how many big ones are in here? And now I guarantee you, if you really watch yourself, you'll pick up your pace and you'll just be scanning for that big giant shed. And I bet you $100 you're probably walking past smaller sheds, which, if that ain't your goal to keep those smaller sheds, and so be it. But to me, I want to find them all. I mean, I just love doing it anyway, but I've caught myself where, I'm not finding much. I'll find a little one, and then boom, there's a good one. And I'll find myself picking the pace up twice as fast, and I'm scanning and looking, and you just got to remind yourself, like, whoa, bud, slow down.
Yep.
Relax. Because the other side could be, tines down where it's a little harder to see, or it could be even hanging in a bush, something out of the norm, or, you just got to slow her down.
Yep. Now, to kind of go back to that point, let's say you do find a good side, or just one side, and when you find that, like, is a deer, because you hear a lot of stories of like, oh, if a deer drops his antlers, he like doesn't like that feeling of the other one on there, and he's gonna like try to knock his head around to try to get that other one off. Now, when you find one side, what's your process? Do you just kind of stop? Like, obviously you're doing some filming and everything, and just kind of Googling over it and everything, but like, what is your plan after that to kind of see, like, how are you covering the area, and how big of an area are you covering to see if it's right there, the other one?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because I have a lot of sheds in my taxidermy shop, and that brings up a lot of the conversations in here when people are dropping deer off, and that gets asked a lot. Like, how many sets do you got? And I bet you over the last 15, 16 years, I might have 40 of them, out of maybe 1,000 sheds.
Yep.
And it's like, well, where is the other side? And I will say probably 9 times out of 10, when I do find a set, it's generally, I bet you, within 50 yards of the other one.
Okay.
Generally. And now I've also been a part of sets where a buddy has found one, and we'll literally be 2 miles away in another section 2 weeks later, and boom, I'll find the other side.
No kidding.
Yeah, that's happened quite often, honestly. Actually, it happened last year. But yeah, going back to, you find a good side. Now what's your next plan? That's where, especially this day and age, we'll pull out our phones, we'll drop a waypoint. And we also like to put, the tracker on, like onX, for example. we'll have our tracker on to see where we've walked, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll drop that waypoint. So boom, there's your 70 side or whatever it is. You kind of get your mind right. You sit down and relax. You don't get too excited. So you pull your phone out, you get all that ready, you drop the waypoint, and now you're starting to, refamiliar, catch yourself back to what you're doing here, and seeing the layout of the land, and if you got a thicket real close to it, and you got a ag field on the other side of it or something in relation to that shed, you pretty much know he's probably feeding and bedding somewhere in there. So we'll stick with the same game plan, but we may pick it apart a little bit harder now that you kind of got a prized possession on your hands here. So it just falls back to getting your mind right, looking small, finding big, and keeping that scanning going with you as you're breaking down the whole property. And 9 times out of 10, you don't find that other side. I mean, it's just, that's the nature of it. That's what's got to be in your head. You do it your best to find it, but they could, a coyote could have jumped that buck after he shed one side, and he was 2 miles across the road still getting it, and boop, there goes the other side, never to be found again. So it just really falls back to a mental thing. I mean, you can hope that you find it, but it's just breaking it down, slowing it up, and you'll come out with a backpack full of them, man.
I hope so. I hope you're right. That's I want a backpack full. To kind of go back to your point of like breaking things down, when you're going into a piece of ground, how are you breaking it down to attack it the best way? Now let's talk about if you're doing it by yourself, like you have nobody else with you, you're just out, shed hunting by yourself. How are you breaking down, let's say, a 200-acre piece to cover it the best way and most efficient way that you can by yourself?
Sure. It again, it goes to access. Where can I park? I'll pick out, that farm. I'll know the boundary lines. That way I'm not just walking aimlessly on the stuff I can't be on. That's first and foremost. I'll see exactly what I can walk, where I'm parked at, because I don't just want to, say the farm lays out north and south long ways, a 200-acre piece. It's longer north than it is east or west. And the parking lots that say it's on the south side, and the ag field's on the north end. Instead of me just cutting straight over to that ag field because that's the only obvious food on the farm, I will look at that map and I'll try to zigzag that entire thing on my way up there. And then even on my way back, I'll try to be efficient and break that all the way down back to the truck versus just, hopping, skipping, and jumping to the ag field and hopping over to maybe a thicket and then backtracking because it looked like there's a decent spot over here. It's just trying to zigzag it efficient as possible, basically gridding the whole farm. Granted, you got the time to do it, and just breaking it down because, like I'm saying, your mental game. Usually when I'm shed hunting, I'm trying to learn the property as well. So, I'll hit up all these little pinch points or, anything like that just to document the farm, for future reference when I go hunting and stuff. So I'm not just solely trying to pick up an antler and move on to the next piece. You know what I mean? I'm really trying to find those highway trails or these little, potential buck bedding areas on the end of knobs on ridges and stuff like that. So I really break it down. And that's what I mean. Once I started going out west with buddies and stuff, our numbers of sheds went down, but our intel and knowledge of the farms skyrocketed because we really just scanned those farms and figured them out for future hunts. So it's not just always about the sheds, but more or less learning the farm really well.
Okay. Yeah. So basically you're saying, let's say you have, you're looking at a map or whatever, and you're trying to break down a piece, but let's say you can see that there's a big cedar thicket and you think it's, money for bedding. What you're saying is you're basically not going right at that right away. You want to cover that whole farm as best you can. You know,
Yeah.
okay,
Yep.
I see what you're saying, because I could see a lot of people like breaking something down and just going to probably the majority of your people just going right to, the main food source or the main bedding that they can find and
Yep.
skipping over, basically the whole piece, like the whole
Yeah.
timber.
Yep. Yep. And that's the big thing there. And I'll be honest, I mean, there's farms around here at home that I've known for years. So I'll bypass a lot of ground there's probably not sheds on, you know what I mean? And I'll go hit up those special little bedding spots or the main food and stuff. But like pertaining to a spot you've never been to, and your intentions would be to either turkey hunt it, deer hunt it, whatever. I'm gonna totally break it down while I'm there. Try to maybe walk the whole farm. Then if you do end up getting into some sheds, you want to match some up, or you're just really finding them on your way back to the truck, just try to grid it out as efficient as possible. That way you're not skipping sections all the way back to your truck, and just really get a thorough breakdown of that whole piece. And, you might come out with a backpack full of sheds or not, but at least you'll have, a couple hours of walking that farm front to back, and you kind of know the layout of it. And you can just use that for year after year after year after year. And then, your success will go up from then on out.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Now I got a question here about finding a shed. Have you ever found a shed off a buck, went in and hunted that the next year and killed that buck?
I have. We were in Southeast Ohio. I was with a really good friend of mine, Brad. And I won't drag this out too far, but we were in college, and we were shed hunting fools. I actually got him into shed hunting. And now when I say Southeast Ohio, you're talking, it's big timber.
Yep.
There's no ag. It's just big timber. And we were walking some big timber. We kind of got down in a creek bottom. We started pulling sheds pretty consistent. And we were walking fools back then, let me tell you. We were young, and we would walk daylight to dark up and down them damn hills till our boots about fell off. So it took some serious time to get in there and get that done. But that year, I was fortunate. I found a match set of sheds. It was a 9-point down in this creek bottom, and probably 115-inch deer at the time. And, falling back on, breaking down a farm, because this is a new piece we've never seen before. We actually got on Google Maps, and we looked at this whole property and where we're going to park and where we're going to walk and all that. And we had done that. And as we were doing it, we were marking trees. We're like, yeah, we could hunt here. Here's a nice pinch point. We can walk in down this power line, the whole deal. So we had did that year and found that set of sheds and various other ones. Brad actually found a 70-inch side that year.
Wow.
Yeah, we found some good stuff, man. Really good sheds. But going fast forward into the following year, Brad and I didn't have any money. We lived together in a little dorm room. I had my old 95 Chevy pickup, and
Yep.
we drove, I think it was about 30 minutes north of the college. And, falling back on the no money, we didn't have enough gas to drive to the hunting spot that night, drive all the way back home, and then drive there in the morning. And, we just didn't have enough money. So we literally would hunt all day, pack lunches and all that, sleep in the truck that night, and then get up that morning and walk back into the timber, which is about a mile from where we parked.
Yep.
And there's this one morning, Brad was probably 600 yards south of me. We were both on the same creek bottom where we found all them sheds. And off to the east side of this creek, it's big timber, a lot of pine trees, a lot of blowdowns, super good bedding. But the problem is the wind would swirl so bad up there with all the deep cuts and ridges and all that. We weren't seeing the deer. I think we were blowing them out.
Mm-hmm.
But in that creek bottom, it was a little more predictable what the wind would do. It was a little more consistent. Whereas typically it would swirl, but down in that creek bottom, it was just more consistent. We were seeing a lot more deer. So anyway, we're hunting once. It was a Sunday morning, I believe, and Brad texted me. Seen anything? No, not much. Put my phone back in my pocket, and no sooner I did that, I looked back and I heard something. And I'm right tight on a creek. I mean, really tight. There was a nice sharp bend, and there was also a ridge off to my right that made a really nice funnel right there. So any deer heading north and south had to basically walk under me. Well, sure enough, here comes 3 does. They walk right underneath me, and they actually ended up winding me, of course. But they're winding me, and they're blowing and stomping. I'm texting Brad. I'm like, damn it, dude, I blew the whole hunt up. We're done. He's texting me back. He's like, yeah, that's no good. No sooner than I do that, and all you hear is sticks breaking and busting behind me, and burr, burr, burr. I'm like, holy shit,
Yep.
Not expecting it, because these does are, 30, 40 yards in front of me, blowing and stomping, and then they bust me in the tree and the whole bit. Here comes this buck right on their ass. And I ended up getting him stopped right under me. I shot the deer. I hit him in the air. The arrow shoots out like a volcano, and it was just insane. He was right under me. And he runs up the ridge right beside me. He falls over. He's done. I text Brad back. I said, dude, I just shot a big one.
Oh, my gosh.
He's like, no way. I go, dude, I swear to God, I just shot a big one. So he gets down out of the trees and meets up with me. We go find the deer. And this is what was pretty cool. I had that set of sheds I found in that creek. I had them with me for rattling horns.
No way.
Right? Yeah, and I didn't rattle this deer in, but I had them with me. And the joke was, I'm going to rattle these horns together, and I'm going to shoot the deer that shed these antlers, which didn't happen. But we're checking out the deer, we're high-fiving and shit, and then kind of both at the same time, Brad and I are looking at each other. We're like, dude, is that the deer? We got the sheds too, and we're holding them up there, and sure as shit, it was that same freaking deer. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I had shot him probably 300 yards from where I found the set. Wasn't necessarily like hunting that deer.
Right.
Like I didn't have trail cameras, and I didn't see him from the road in velvet and all that kind of thing. It was just, we were hunting where we knew the sign was, and it just so happened I shot that deer that I had the sheds to.
Wow.
That I had, around my neck for rattling horns, and I ended up killing him. It was wild. It was very cool, man.
Dude, that's an unbelievable story. That is so cool.
Yeah.
And
nuts.
Just because you didn't have pictures of them or you didn't go in there after that deer, like that's so cool. That's like, you did the full circle right there. You went and you shed hunted and you were scouting. You found all these sheds and you're like, this is the spot I need to be in. And then, this buck comes by, you shoot him, and just so happens to be this buck that you found sheds off of.
Yeah.
But that's cool, man. You did that from A to Z. You scouted, found sheds. You don't really have to find sheds, but you scouted, found the hot sign, found where majority of the deer are, and then you killed a deer the next year. That's crazy. That's awesome.
It was, man. It was very rewarding for us. It's one I'll never ever forget.
For sure. And how big was he?
I think he had super short G2s. They're like 3 inches long. They weren't even busted. He's
really
super short twos. I think he went 126, I believe.
Okay.
I remember
great
right.
Buck. I mean, it's an awesome buck.
Yeah, for that area, it was a great deer, man. To do it the way we did, we were both. Brad was just as pumped as I was. I'll promise you. We were very very excited on that.
That's cool, man. Now, to kind of get back on track here with the shed hunting, that was awesome. Great story. I'm glad I asked you that because that's kind of what I was looking for. But
sure,
Now, is there a spot that you found a majority of your sheds? Now, not a particular like farm, but like, are you finding most of your sheds like on fence rows, on bedding areas, on south-facing slopes or main food sources? Like, is there a spot that sticks out in your head where it's like, man, I just find more of my sheds in these types of areas?
I'm going to say that the thick bedding area, mainly because if you're in a spot where a lot of people shed hunt, what's the easiest thing to walk? That flat ag field.
Yep.
So number one, you're battling, other shed hunters. They could be getting there before you. and it feels like that the thickest bedding next to it doesn't get hit as hard. And if you really use that system I was telling you, where you break that down like a grid pattern, and you're really scanning, and you're looking small, and you're potentially find big if you just really break down them thick spots. Keep the sun at your back and all that, and walk around those cedars, and just keep looking at your phone, and like I said, with that tracker, to see where you walk, and just be super efficient. And I feel like I find a lot more in them thickets and the closest bedding than I would, a winter wheat field or something. Sure, you might pull 2 or 3 out of there, but you start getting to where they concentrate most of their beds, you just really start pulling them pretty heavy.
I gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. Now, you're talking about the gridding. I'm going to go back to the gridding real quick.
Yep.
I'm trying to visualize this. So when you're gridding out a piece of ground, let's say you make one pass from east to west, just for speaking, you make one pass. When you turn and go back, the opposite way, how far are you zigzagging? Like, how far are you going down from your last pass?
Yeah, it's kind of situational. If we'll start with the flat ground. Let's say it's just a winter wheat field, that has no snow in it. So if a shed's in there, it's going to be fairly obvious. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So in that scenario, let's say you're walking east to west. You walk the whole, you're walking east to west while moving north to south. So you go all the way to the west. I would probably go maybe 20 yards.
Okay.
And then I'd start cutting back east. And you can get it tighter than that. If the wheat is a foot tall and you're going to about have to walk on one to find it, you might want to, tighten your group up a little bit. That's where it's kind of situational. Or if it's like a cut cornfield, man, you better be prepared to have your mind straight, and you're going to be cutting over maybe 3-4 rows. I mean, you're going to have to cut it real tight because they just blend in so well.
Yep.
Whereas let's say it's a bean field, a cut beans field, I mean, especially if there's no snow, I mean, you could probably see one, especially if it's like a cloudy day and it's wet out and it's prime time conditions, you could probably see one from 100 yards almost.
Okay.
But in the woods, let's say you're walking an oak ridge top that's fairly flat and there's not a whole lot of underbrush. That same scenario, you pretty much, this depends how tight the undercover is, or if it's super sunny and there's stuff that's just kind of impacting your line of sight. The tougher it is, like if it's sunnier, if it's thicker, I'll break down those grids a lot tighter just to be more efficient. But if it's prime time conditions where it's dark and cloudy, it just rained, I might spread it out a little bit because I can see a little bit better, just to kind of maximize my time. So I hope that made sense. I just try to, it's so situational, the way you break it down.
No, that makes total sense, because that's one thing I always look at too. It's like, you just go walk around. Like a lot of people probably like, just go walk around and see if we can find some sheds. But I'm trying to figure out how to be the most efficient as well, and how to actually like methodically break down a piece of ground. And I honestly, me personally, I didn't really think about, like, you think about gridding it, but to me, I'm a guy that's like, I'm going to go to the most obvious place, but I'm like shed hunting all private ground. So, that I have access to, that a lot of other people really aren't shed hunting. So I kind of go to those higher percentage places, I would say. And that's where I start.
Sure.
But I could definitely see, pieces like you're going to a lot of public ground, and you're not the only guy looking out there, so it can be tough sledding, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's just keeping the mentality of look small and find big, even after you find a big one. Kind of falling back on that. It's just keeping your mind right, and just sticking to your game plan. And it's trial and error thing. I've been fortunate to do this a long time, and these are methods that just work for me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you just got to have a plan and just break it down the best you can, and just keep following that fresh sign, and you'll start walking in the sheds.
That's cool, man. Well, here for the next little bit, I want to wrap it up with some like rapid fire kind of deals, some things that I'm like interested to know about you. And basically the first one is, what is the biggest shed you've ever found?
Yeah, no problem, man. That baby she bought goes to bed with me every night. It's actually part of a set. My biggest shed is 86 and 6/8.
Holy cow, man.
It's a slob, man. It's got a 7-inch base on it, and it's just a mass monster. I actually nicknamed the deer Stumps, not because I have any history with it. I just randomly found it in Kansas Public, but the bases on it are like pop cans, man.
That's crazy.
It's a special deer that, yeah, it was a good one, man.
So you found his other side though as well?
Yeah, I might as well tell you the story.
I was going to say, we got to get into that.
All right, here's the deal, man. And I'll keep it kind of short. I was in Iowa prior to that with a good buddy of mine, Ian, and we killed it, man. We found, I think, 26 sheds, I believe, in like 3 days, and that was in 2-foot snow, which was phenomenal because a lot of them were buried. Found a few mid 60-inch sides, 150-inch sets. It was off the charts, best shed hunt ever. So I thought I would never top it. I was like, dude, this is my best year ever. I was already content with what I found.
Yep.
But I had 3 days of my vacation to go to Kansas. So it was like midday. I was heading to Kansas. I was cutting through Missouri. It's like 10 o'clock. And it starts spitting snow, and I'm on the highway, and it was kind of sleeting. And I'm going over this overpass, and at the bottom of the overpass, it got really bumpy. And in my truck, it drives like a freaking semi. It's a little half-ton pickup, but it rides stiff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm getting at, I'm going over this overpass. Like I said, it's sleeting and snowing and kind of icy out. I hit all these bumps, and, dude, my truck went absolutely 90 degrees. And I'm freaking the hell out, I'll tell you that. I mean, I'm shaking and trying to get control of my truck because off the west side of the road, there is essentially a cliff that went down to the river. I, honest to God, thought this was the end of me because I couldn't get control of my damn truck.
Holy cow.
Dude, it was nuts. I was freaking the hell out. Luckily, I didn't slam on the brakes and didn't start doing 360s. I just let the truck kind of woe itself down. And anyways, I got the truck stopped. Then I put her in full-wheel drive, and I drove about 30 miles an hour for 2 hours. So I was so freaked out. But what I'm getting at, I got out of the sleet and the snow, kind of got my bearings back. And after I done called everybody and told them I loved them because I thought I was going to die, but I made it. Dude, I did. That's no shit. I was freaking the hell out. I thought for sure I was going over that cliff, and this was the end of me. But I made it. I kept trucking on south, and I busted into Kansas, and that's when the butterflies get to flying. I just love that state. I was all jacked up to go. So I get to Kansas. It's about noon, and this is a farm we've previously walked with my really good buddy Jake. He couldn't go that year. I was by myself going to Kansas. And so I get to Kansas. There's this one section of the farm where we found sheds the year prior. The layout of it, the wolf side of the roads, pretty much all your ag fields. You got some fence rows with some CRP mixed in. There's a little creek. It's a beautiful farm, easy to walk. East side of the road is kind of your big timber, your oak ridge tops. It butts up to a lake. There's swamps. It's a lot more intimidating of an area. It's just really big. So I didn't have a whole lot of time. So I wanted to walk the ag fields because I didn't have much time, and I knew I could efficiently walk that pretty quick and kind of find more sheds per se. But I pulled in down to this old level B road that's not maintained, muddy, sloppy fucking mess. But I get in there, and I want to go to the parking lot, and I'll be damned if there ain't a truck parked there. I'm like, damn it. the only spot in Kansas I want to go for sure. And there's a truck park there. And it butted up to a bean field. It was muddier than hell. And I see the 2 sets of boot tracks. They're cutting across this bean field. They're shed hunting.
What time of year is this?
This was March 7th.
Okay.
Yep, March 7th. And I had assumed they were shed hunting, most likely. What else would they be doing on, I think it was a Thursday at noon, 1 o'clock
Right.
in the middle of nowhere? They're probably shed hunting. I'm like, damn it. But, oh, well, hey, there's thousands of acres here. Let's grind on. Let's keep going. So I walked the east side of the farm instead of the west side where the ag's at. I walked that for, I think, almost 4 hours. And I get back to the truck. I didn't find anything. But I marked stuff on my phone, more spots to hunt and all that good stuff. But I didn't find any sheds. I think there's an hour left in the day. I get to the truck, and I want to go back to that little parking spot where that truck was parked. And I get in my truck. I had to drive 1,000 yards to it. And I'm halfway there, and I didn't notice there's a little car sitting there. But they were just pulling out, and it was 2 dudes in camo. I'm like, God damn it, they're freaking shed hunting too. I know they are. I'm like, this is the honey hole to our best spot where we found the most sheds, and here's people walking our shit.
Yep.
But it is what it is. I'm just like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go anyway. And like I said, this farm's laid out. There's a bunch of ag, and it's broken down with, fence rows and kind of waterways of sorts, and CRP and cedars mixed in with it. And I park at the parking lot where those 2 trucks were, and I can see their boot tracks all through the beans. They were shed hunting. I know they were. Dang it. But I knew of a fence row that ran north and south that Jake had found a pretty good shed in the year prior. I'm like, well, I know they bed there. It's a really wide fence row, like 30 yards wide, grass and cedars mixed in it. Real good bedding, nighttime bedding in between these ag fields. So I cut across the beans, and I'm making my way to this fence row, and then I was going to walk to the south end and loop up north all the way back to the truck before dark. Well, I'm halfway down that fence row. I'm just getting into the tall weeds, and like I said, there's cedars mixed together. And there's a cedar tree probably 100 yards south of me. So I'm kind of gravitating towards that. And I'm probably 75 yards from it. And I stopped, and I seen something shining, so I grabbed my binoculars, I pulled it up, and it's a white 4-point side, nice one, like a 60-inch 4-point side. I'm like, fuck yeah, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like, it's right next to the bean field. I'm like, hell yeah, they freaking didn't see that thing, I'm like, sweet, man. Only shit I found all day so far. So I'm all pumped up. I'm getting my cameras out because I want to film this thing, and getting all my shit ready, and I'm gonna film it. And I probably got another 30 yards closer, and I pulled my binos up again to see if maybe the match was there or something. And I pulled it up, and I looked 10 foot to the left of it, and there sat the biggest shed of my life. I mean, it was right next to it. That gigantic, heavy horn son of a gun was sitting there. That big 5-point. And I go, oh my God. That's exactly
You probably didn't
what
even go to the 4-point side, did you?
No, I just stood there and I said, oh my God. I knew it was the biggest shed I ever found. I knew it was right off the get. And I'm fumbling around with cameras. I'm like, screw it. So I just turned my phone on. I wanted to get my live reaction to that really big side because I was hyperventilating. I knew it was my biggest shed ever. And in the midst of doing that, I'm walking around in circles trying to calm down a little bit. I'm trying not to yell and cuss and make a scene in the middle of the timber here, but I'm sitting there, oh my God, and then scratching my head and freaking out, and thinking about what I'm going to do and this and that. So I looped around like 20 yards, and I was going to film myself, walking up to it. And in the midst of doing that, guess what I found?
The other side.
The other side of that giant. I absolutely freaked out, dude. I went nuts because it ended up being a 76-inch 4-point side with crazy mass.
76-inch 4-point side?
Yeah.
Holy
with a 6 and 7/8 base on it. Dude, it was... I didn't know what to think. like I said, I just turned the camera on to film it, so you got my straight up real reaction to the whole thing. And I found that, and I was pumped about it. It was a huge shed, but I wanted to go see that giant one with the, the 86-inch side. So I go running up there, and I mean, it's just a giant. It's got a 8-9 inch brow on it. It's got 2 4-inch stickers coming off the base, and it's a 7-inch base on it. He carries over 5-inch mass, 12-inch D2 on it. And I picked that sucker up, and I just knew that was the career find for me.
Wow.
And, yeah, I almost shed a tear on that deal. I ain't gonna lie.
That's crazy.
That's your ultimate. I was like, how in the hell did nobody find these? And there's 3 sheds, within 30 yards of each other, right next to the bean field where these dudes are shed hunting.
Yep.
I mean, right next to it. I just could not believe it. And, yeah, I sat there, I bet you, for a good hour, dude. I was calling my buddies, and I was like, man, I did it. I found a giant, and just soaking it in, man. It was intense.
That's crazy. And it just goes to show you, like, just like hunting, like, just when you least expect it, you watch 2 vehicles parked in your honey hole, and just when you least expect it, you go and you find the biggest deer of your life.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It was insane. It was the day I thought I was going to fall off the cliff and never shed on again, to the peak of my career find ever, all in one day. And it was insane, man.
Roller coaster of emotions, man.
Dude, it was March 7th, 2019 was a very unique day for me.
That's
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, I got a couple more questions before we wrap it up. I just wanted some quick hitters here.
Yeah.
What's the most sheds you found in one day?
In one day, I found 16 of them once.
Wow. That's crazy.
It was nuts, man. It was nuts. And a buddy he'd found 3, so we found 19 in a matter of about 2 hours.
No way.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was just a real thick, it's kind of like a cedar patch. It was mixed pines and kind of a swale grass bottom type of deal. And they were just absolutely pounding that, bedding that in that spot that year.
That's cool.
And every year since that I've walked it, it's never been the same like that. So
wow.
I actually don't know the rhyme or reason to why there was so many in there that year, but dude, we just left the backpack open. It was just one after another, it was insane.
That's crazy. That's really cool.
Yeah.
What is your favorite state to shed hunt? Is it Kansas?
Oh, it's gonna have to be Kansas. Not just because I found that gross boon. It's just a hybrid of everything, a deer hunter wants, man. It's got just everything you want in it.
Yep, for sure.
The ag fields and the low bottoms and the cedar draws and the oak ridge tops and just everything combined into one. Gigantic deer. It's right up there. I mean, Ohio's got a special spot in my heart too. I live here. I mean, shed hunted all over this state. I love it too, but we look forward to Kansas every year. We talk about it all year long, and yeah, we love to do it, man.
That's cool. Now, how many states have you shed hunted? How many different states?
Yeah, I've been fortunate to walk in 8 states.
Okay.
I've found sheds in 8 states. I've walked 9.
Okay.
Pennsylvania is the one I've been to, I think 3 or 4 times now, looking for elk and whitetails, and haven't found one there yet, but I got 8 states under my belt so far.
Awesome, man. That's really cool. Now, I guess the last question I have for you is, if you had any quick advice, elevator pitch advice to someone that is like shed hunting and everything, what would be the 1 or 2 things you would tell them to be the most successful, I guess?
Yeah. Kind of falling back to what we said, man, just, you got to plan it out, just diagnose that property the best you can, whether it's an aerial photo or, word of mouth from somebody else, that kind of knows the farm. Take that all in and once you got that in your mind, just do your best to break it down efficient. So your time is, you're being most efficient as you can, covering that ground with the time you got. Look small, find big. I've said that for years. That'll increase your shed numbers. That'll help get your mental game right. Keep you motivated to go.
Yep.
And and most of all, just have fun, man.
That's
have
cool.
fun.
Yep.
Just keep grinding, man. You could always learn something from it. I don't care if you find a shed or not. Like I was saying, you can totally look at a farm, and see all the last year's sign and just document all that and relay it the next fall or the next shed season, or you can always learn from it.
Yep.
It's simple as that.
Very cool, man. So I guess I want to leave you with kind of shout out a little bit. If anybody wants to know what you're doing with sheds, first of all, like where can they go to see, some of the footage that you've shot, and, you have an Instagram and stuff like that, like direct them to there to kind of follow your endeavors when you're shed hunting.
Sure. My personal Instagram is Cody Motter, -Bones Taxidermy. I post somewhat on there. It's mainly the taxidermy side of my life, but I do put some sheds on there. But where you can find the majority of my content, as well as a good buddy of mine, Evan Lawler with Antler Authority. You can find them on Instagram at Antler Authority. He's a shed god. He's a super cool guy, and he's putting a lot of stuff on YouTube. A lot of just good stuff, man. It's all good, fun shed hunting. There's tips and tricks in there, but it just really, it showcases the fun of shed hunting, and it's just a good thing to watch. It gets you fired up, and it'll help kind of get your mind right too, because he'll pan across where the shed's laying, and it'll kind of acclimate your eyes again with what you're supposed to be looking for, and it's a good pregame warm up per se to watch some of that stuff.
Heck yeah, man. Well, Very cool, man. I'm glad you reached out to me, and I'm glad we did this, because this is really insightful, and I appreciate you coming on and doing this, man. Really do.
Yeah, anytime, man. I could talk about this stuff. I think till your ears fell off, but hopefully I didn't confuse nobody, and I had some useful tips for everybody. And if anybody needs a hand or wants a tip on what they're doing, feel free to send me a message. I'll do the best I can to help get you on some sheds. I love it. So
cool, man. Well, I appreciate it very much, and I guess good luck this shed season.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. We're gonna be heading west here soon, and maybe old Stumps is still walking around carrying that pretty crown that maybe we can find. So
if you find Stumps, we're doing another podcast. So
dude,
you let me know when you find him, and then we'll do another one, just a story on that.
Yeah, dude, if I'm still alive, I guarantee you, I see that son of a bitch is set laying there again. I'll probably have a heart attack and probably not make it out of the woods. So.
Oh man, I can't wait to see that. So you keep me posted when you head out there.
I will do that, man.
All right, you have a good evening. Thank you.
All right, take care, man.
All right, there you have it. Thank you very much to Cody Motter for coming on and talking. I appreciate it, man. The guy is he is passionate about shed hunting, and I love it. So part 1 is over of the shed series. Next week we're gonna have part 2 with a pretty close friend of mine, probably one of the most successful shed hunters that I know, if not the top. So that's a good episode as well. So lastly, I do want to say, please go over to iTunes, leave a 5-star rating, and leave a review on there. It'd be greatly appreciated. So thank you guys again. We'll catch you right here next week on the Fall Podcast.